Hello everyone, welcome to our next chapter video. Today is a bit of a serious, somewhat solemn topic. 2 days ago, Japan observed the 8th anniversary post the March 11th earthquake up in Tohoku. And my topic today is related to that, although I'm not going to talk about the incident itself beyond saying that it's one of those things that happens in your life that if you're old enough to remember, you're going to remember where you were and what you were doing, what happened. I was at my sink putting my contacts in, actually, and everything started to shake, and it was at first just like any other earthquake, it felt, except that it kept on going, and it kept on going, and it got stronger. And then the power went out, which is also not usual. So that was certainly what made it, at first, a different experience. But in actuality, we had no idea what was going on then because the power went out, meaning we didn't have any TV to see what was happening, and it didn't seem dire enough down where we were. We weren't thinking about evacuating or anything like that, and so we just went on with our day, went to bed. Power came on at about 2 a.m. and turned off a few lights that had been left on and went back to sleep. My family in America knew well before I did what was happening up in Tohoku, well, more accurately, what had happened up in Tohoku, and were rightly worried, of course. Basically, we woke up the next morning to the TV and the horrible images that by now most everyone has seen. And it's what happened after that that actually leads to my topic today, which is disaster preparation. Now, I'm not going to tell you about preparing an emergency kit or anything like that. There's plenty of websites out there with experts who are much better at that sort of thing than I, who can give much better advice. And that includes Japanese government websites, and they do have English support for those sorts of things, recommending what to put into a bag. If I'm not going to talk about what to put in your bag, what am I going to talk about? Quite simply, the necessity of having one. Here in Yokohama, Tokyo, in the days after, store shelves were completely empty. I mean, there was nothing to be had for the most part, especially staple items like bread and rice. And you go into the supermarket, they get a new shipment of things, and every morning, and there would be huge lines, and everything would be sold out before noon. Lines at the gas station, etc. And it really just comes down to population density. There's just so many people here that the convenience stores, supermarkets, everything was sold out almost immediately. And that shouldn't surprise anyone, but what surprises me is that no one has talked about this in regards to all of the predictions and things that they've been talking about in regards to the big one possibly happening in Tokyo, Yokohama area. Now again, I'm talking about population density. So if it happens here, in all likelihood, the same sort of thing is going to take place. We're going to have a rush on supplies. There's a lot of people here. And if the roads are mangled and the train lines aren't running and major airports like Haneda and even Narita are not operating, and Yokohama, Tokyo are very large, important ports, so if there's a tsunami of any sort, there are not going to be ships coming into those ports. A much bigger mess in terms of getting food and water to hungry and thirsty mouths. And I teach a class of university students, and in the textbook that we use, there's a chapter on disaster preparation. And I have students who are from Yokohama, Tokyo. They mostly live at home with their parents. with a few exceptions. But there's a lot of students from outside of Yokohama. And so they weren't here. They didn't experience that shortage of goods. Although they are old enough to remember where they were when the earthquake happened. It's certainly part of their memory. But those students who come from elsewhere, I always make a point of asking them. They're living in apartments by themselves, right? They're too far away to live at home with their family. So they're living in an apartment by themselves, and I make a point of asking these students, have you put aside emergency water and food in case of an earthquake here? And it's pretty much a given that about 2 people out of 20 will raise their hand and say yes, they've put something aside, which is clearly not a good situation. Multiply that by all of the other universities in the greater Yokohama, Tokyo area, of which there are many, and then those students who graduate, who stay in Tokyo, Yokohama, and are working as salary men and women. It's unlikely they have changed their situation all that much. So basically, the bottom line, what I'm getting at here is, if you live here now, and this goes for whether Yokohama or Tokyo, I mean, this could happen pretty much anywhere in Japan. It's just particularly dire here because of the population density, right? But if you live here or are planning to live here, do yourself and everyone else a favor and have your emergency supplies ready to go. Follow the advice that you can find online in that regards. Download the PDF files that are disaster readiness and prevention that the Tokyo and Yokohama governments put out, and I'll put some links down below this video. And even if you're here as a tourist, it's not a bad idea to have bottled water just waiting back at your hotel room in case, and have one in your bag, and maybe a few snack items that, worst comes to worst, you eat them or take them home. And if you go online, that's the issue. As I said, they've got lots of advice out there for putting packs together, but not a lot of information about what is available that the government has laid by for emergencies. Now, it exists. It does absolutely exist, because I used to live close to a junior high school, and they had these large they looked like shipping containers. And those large shipping containers were supplies that are laid away for emergency. But I can't believe that it's possibly going to be enough, given how everything was emptied after March 11th, 8 years ago. So yeah, do yourself a favor, be ready, have stuff put together, and consider the fact that store shelves are going to be empty for days and days to come. I mean, they were empty for a good 5-6 days down here post-earthquake, and the earthquake didn't even happen here. We didn't have a tsunami or any real earthquake damage in this area. So we were just close enough, and there's just a lot of people here. All right. That's my advice. If you like this video or found it interesting, useful, please check out my other content. Hit the like button, subscribe, and until my next video, stay safe.